Okay, great. So good morning once again. Thank you everybody for being here. My name is Deborah Lax. I am Director of Field and Channel Marketing here at Pentera. I will be introducing all of the people who will be on stage today with us. This webinar is hosted by Pentera along with our partner CarbonSec. And with us today we have Matthias Kosem, CEO of CarbonSec, along with Grega Presarin, who's CTO of CarbonSec, and Sion Redskin, Head of Knowledge and Practice here at Pentera. And thank you to all of our panelists for joining this session. I really hope that you will enjoy it. We'll have Matthias introducing CarbonSec, along with Grega showing us a little bit about Pentera, and then Sion will go ahead and give you a demo of the solution and also, of course, speak about ransomware, which is our main topic for today. I know that it's a really hot topic, and we all want to hear what our panelists have to say about it. Last but not least, I'd like to encourage everybody to use the Q&A function on the bottom of your screen here on Zoom to ask all the questions that you'd like. Our panelists will be ready to answer your questions. And of course, we will be jumping from Slovenian to English for your knowledge. And without further ado, I want to give the stage over to Matthias from CarbonSec, and I hope everybody enjoys the webinar. Have a great session. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie, for the very nice introduction. I'll switch to Slovene now. Lep pozdrav še v slovenskem jeziku. Morda za tiste, ki ne veste, v CarbonSecu smo specialisti za testiranje kibernetske varnosti. To je že tretji webinar na temo avtomatiziranega testiranja kibernetske varnosti, ampak danes se bomo prav posebej fokusirali na boj zoper izsiljevalske viruse oziroma tako imenovanem ransomwareu. Mogoče čisto na hitro malo zgodovine. Prvi zabeležen primer izsiljevalskega virusa sega že, bom rekel, v računalniškem smislu daljno leto 1989. To je bil trojanec z imenom, ne boste verjeli, AIDS. In v bistvu takrat je bilo tega še zelo malo, ampak recimo, če pogledamo danes, v letu 2021 ransomware dosega že za približno 20 milijard ameriških dolarjev škode. Zdaj, razlogov za to je več, bistvena sta pa dva. Ta prvega, da je to izredno dobičkonosen posel, seveda vsi poznamo, ampak druga zadeva, ki se pa vedno bolj kaže, pa dejstvo, da tveganje ransomware akterjev, da bodo kaznovani, izredno majhno. Če mogoče naredimo samo eno tako primerjavo s preprodajalci drog, točneje kokaina. Leta 1992 je bil naprimer prijet vsak drugi preprodajalec kokaina, torej 50% tveganje. Če pogledamo v letu 2020, ker so statistike na voljo, je bilo v 25,000 ransomware napadih aretiranih manj kot 20 posameznikov, kar pomeni približno 8-promilno tveganje. To je praktično nič. In če za zaključek povemo samo še to, da sta se v letošnjem letu o medsebojnem sodelovanju, kako se boriti proti ransomware as a service problemu, sta se pogovarjala že po telefonu Joe Biden in Vladimir Putin, in v bistvu, ko to vemo, lahko že ugotovimo, da je dobesedno vrag odnesel šalo. Kot vedno pri kibernetski varnosti, še kot tudi pri ransomwareu velja, da napadalec gre kjer mu je lažje, kjer bo hitreje dosegel svoj rezultat. In kaj lahko mi danes naredimo, da ne bomo enostavna tarča? Poleg tega, da skrbimo za ozaveščene uporabnike, o tem bosta govorila naš tehnični direktor Grega Prešeren in Sion-Redskin Head of Knowledge at Pentera. Grega, jaz predlagam, da kar zagrabaš, beseda je tvoja.
Hvala, Matjaž. Še zaslon podelim. Ok. Predvidevam, da se vidi, ne? Ja, torej, predno gremo v specifiko ransomwarea, bi jaz naredil eno kratko predstavitev osnov Penteri, se pravi, kakšna rešitev je Pentera že v osnovi, potem gremo pa še skupaj s Sionom v specifiko ransomwarea. Takole. Torej, kater izziv pravzaprav Pentera, rešitev Pentera sploh rešuje, ne? Danes večina podjetij se ukvarja s kibernetsko varnostjo, ker so v to prisiljeni, sicer se verjetno niti ne bi. In tukaj je en velik izziv, kako v bistvu potrditi, da so neke varnostne kontrole, ki jih podjetja implementirajo, se pravi, tudi rešitve, ki jih kupujejo in nastavitve, ki jih nekako temu prilagajajo, kako te stvari potrditi, da so ok, in kako to nekako kontinuirano početi, ker vemo, da če tega ne počnemo, potem naš trud ne obrodi sadov. Se pravi, mi mislimo, da smo nekaj v redu naredili, če tega nismo verificirali, zelo verjetno tam obstaja neka napaka, neka luknja, ki jo lahko nekdo zlorabi. Seveda obstajajo načini, kako smo mi te varnostne luknje odkrivali že v preteklosti in to počnete še vedno, ne? Tukaj lahko uporabljate nekatera orodja, ki vam odkrivajo ranljivosti, poslužujete se eksternih pentesterjev, mi smo seveda tisti, ki to primarno tudi izvajamo. Zdaj, tukaj se izkaže en problem, ne? Da če želimo mi stalno preverjati, dajmo reči, naše varnostne kontrole, potem bi morali to početi zelo pogosto. In izkaže se, da recimo notranje omrežje je neka tako dinamično okolje, kjer se veliko sprememb dogaja in bi morali zelo pogosto izvajati neko penetracijsko testiranje in to je v bistvu okolje, ki je bilo prvo, ki je Pentera dobila idejo, da pričnejo avtomatizirati te storitve, ne. Se pravi, Pentera to notranje okolje zelo dobro pokrije, recimo druge stvari pa potem pentesterji znajo bistveno boljše, recimo aplikacije, zunanje storitve, ne vem, varnostne arhitekture in tako naprej. Tako da Pentera je tukaj not pozicionirana in tukaj upravlja res vrhunsko delo. Treba jim je priznati, da je to res unikatna rešitev. Saj vemo, da ne počne nič, kar ljudje ne bi počeli že prej, ampak tukaj se to počne avtomatsko in zelo učinkovito. Tako da res kapo dol fantom, ki so to razvili in to razvijajo še naprej in danes bomo spoznali to zadnjo funkcionalnost. Zdaj, v čem je pravzaprav Pentera različna proti vsem ostalim rešitvam, ki jih morda že imate ali pa jih poznate, tipično neki vulnerability skenerji, simulacijska orodja in tako naprej. Prva zelo pomembna lastnost Pentere je, da ne uporablja nobenih agentov, agentless, se pravi, implementacija je zelo enostavna, v bistvu se na en prenosnik, relativno poceni napravo, lahko ta softverska rešitev namesti in v bistvu upravlja svoje delo. V bistvu jo lahko začnete takoj uporabljati. Se pravi, nobenih agentov ni potrebno nameščati nikjer drugje po omrežju. Za razliko od drugih orodij se tukaj izvajajo resnični poskusi vdora oziroma kar resnični vdori, lahko rečemo, ker bistvo orodja je, da nam na koncu pokaže, kaj se v resnici lahko zgodi, tako da res da dokaz, da se to da narediti. Se pravi, tipično je lahko nek cilj, da pridemo na nek datotečni strežnik, da dobimo pravice nekega uporabniškega računa in tukaj se to dejansko dokaže. Se pravi, razlika proti vulnerability skenerjem, ki samo odkrivajo ranljivosti in jih odkrijejo mnogo in med tem je večina takih, ki se jih tipično ne da zlorabiti, ne? Pentera pokaže na tiste, ki se jih resnično da zlorabiti in to dejansko dokaže. Seveda takoj dobimo pomislek, ker gre očitno za neko resnično hekanje, ali je to varno. Ja, je varno, mi imamo kar nekaj že izkušenj, ne samo skozi proof of concept, ampak tudi z resničnih deplojev pri strankah, da zadeva je varna 100%, Takrat, ko je potencialno prišlo do težave, smo v bistvu ugotovili, da smo sami dovolili, da orodje nekaj počne, brez da bi morda se zavedali nekih posledic. Tukaj tak tipičen primer, recimo, da dovolimo orodju, da dela nek brute force napad. No in pa tukaj še ena bistvena dobra lastnost je pa celovitost. Se pravi, orodje dejansko ni omejeno s časom, ni omejeno z resursi, tako kot smo tipično ljudje. In če želimo nekaj pogosto delati, pa to hkrati celovito, potem, če to delamo kot storitev, če to dela človek, je to seveda drago, pa dolg časa traja, ker so tukaj uspeli to zelo dobro avtomatizirati, tukaj lahko v kratkem času zagotovimo to celovitost. Se pravi, kaj pravzaprav orodje počne? Tukaj imamo ta krog, ta life cycle napada, in v bistvu prva dva dela sta tista, kjer tipična orodja funkcionirajo danes. Se pravi, vulnerability scannerji so tukaj noter. Delajo odkrivanje naprav in delajo odkrivanje ranljivosti. Naprej tipično že ne znajo, Pentera pa pokrije pravzaprav cel ta krog, ki ga tipično imenujemo tudi kill chain. Se pravi, lovi hashe gesel, potem razbija te gesla, posreduje ta gesla naprej in se poskuša drugam autenticirati, se pravi s tako imenovanimi relay napadi. Poskuša simulirati malware in videti, koliko je varna protivirusna zaščita, koliko je varna zaščita končnih odjemalcev. In potem išče podatke, se pravi, mi lahko na koncu, zelo zanimivo, zelo dober feature, v orodju povemo, kje je naša največja vrednost v informacijskem sistemu. Se pravi, kje so tisti ključni cilji, do katerih mi absolutno ne želimo, da nekdo pride. In te lahko vnesemo noter v orodje in če orodje slučajno uspe do tja prideti, nas na to potem še ekstra opozori. No in pa na koncu jasno seveda reporting in pa čiščenje, ker smo omenili, da je možno dokazati neko zlorabo, je treba potem mogoče kakšen dokaz tam tudi počistiti, zato da je stanje informacijskega sistema enako po testu, kot je bilo pred testom. Ja, zdaj, kako to orodje v resnici funkcionira, se pravi, na eni strani odkrije ranljivosti, kje smo pravzaprav izpostavljeni, in potem poskuša te ranljivosti zlorabiti. In tukaj bistvena razlika, ki bi jo rad na tem slajdu poudaril, je pa ta, da kombinacija nekih manjših ranljivosti, ki jih tudi vulnerability scannerji znajo zlorabiti, lahko privede do ključnega uspeha, oziroma temu rečemo achievementa. In tukaj vidimo recimo 3 manjše ranljivosti, ki nas lahko na koncu privedejo. Mi smo že na večjih konferencah predstavili neke te primere, žal tukaj nimamo časa, da bi te detaljno še enkrat opisali, ampak lahko mi o tem verjamete. No, na koncu je seveda zelo pomembno, ko dobimo rezultate, in tukaj je spet bistvena razlika napram orodjem, ki smo jih v preteklosti uporabljali, in nam dajo eno goro podatkov, kje zdaj pravzaprav začeti odpravljati stvari. Kaj je zdaj ključno, kaj ima najvišjo prioriteto, in Pentera tukaj zna zelo lepo grafično pokazati, kako si sledijo neki dogodki znotraj enega napada, se pravi, kakšen je v resnici attack vektor, in na koncu, kje je zdaj najbolj smotrno, najbolj smiselno v bistvu ta kill chain, oziroma ta vektor prekiniti. Temu rečejo simulacija fixa, fix simulation. Tako da res, zopet zelo pomembna funkcionalnost. Omenjal sem reporting, tukaj vedno povem en primer, ne boste verjeli, kaj se nam je zgodilo, da nas je nekdo najel, da smo mu pošteno in odkrito in pravilno tehnično razložili poročilo, ki ga je ta stranka že prejela od nekega drugega pentesterja. Se pravi, to je nekaj, kar se absolutno ne želite, da se vam zgodi, in poročilo, ki ga Pentera da, je res, mislim, prvič, tako hitro poročilo ne more človek nikoli napisati, in je zelo jasno, in na koncu bomo zdaj šli v kratek demo, računam, da bomo imeli čas, da ga tudi pogledamo. Morda za konec, mogoče v Sloveniji to malo pogled v prihodnost, ampak tisti, ki imate že neke varnostne operativne centre oziroma soce, vas vedno zanima, katere, oziroma pri lovljenju, detekciji in blokiranju katerih tehnik napada ste dobri, kje pa niste dobri, in tukaj zopet Pentera v bistvu vse ugotovitve zna dobro mapirati v Mitre Attack Framework, kjer potem to takoj dobite ven iz poročila in potem veste, na katerih kontrolah je morda potrebno malo več delati. No in seveda na podlagi vsega tega inovativnega dela, ki sem ga opisal, je Pentera prejela ogromno nagrad. Seveda ogromno je tukaj že nekih strank v ozadju in tudi v Sloveniji. Ne bom tukaj šel v detajle, tako da bi na tem mestu prekinil slajčev in šel na demo, ki ga bomo izvedli v lab okolju Pentere. Toliko, da boste dobili občutek tudi, kako je to enostavno. Se pravi, orodje je pravzaprav namenjeno vam, podjetjem, da same testirate varnost notranjega omrežja. Zdaj bomo hitro naredili en black box scenarij, potem bo pa kasneje Sion pokazal še v bistvu targeted testing, ki bo fokusiran na ransomware. Torej, za nas je zanimiv black box. Ne bomo šli zdaj v vse detajle vseh teh nastavitev, tako da bomo šli tukaj hitro čez. Bomo rekel ime tega engagementa in pa nek ciljni range, ki je pravzaprav edini podatek, ki ga moramo vnesti v orodje v tej black box obliki, s katero se vedno splača pričeti. Se pravi, s tem bomo pravzaprav ugotovili, kaj bi lahko nekdo dosegel, če samo priključi svojo napravo pravzaprav v omrežje. Ne bomo šli zdaj tukaj v detajle teh nastavitev. Če koga to zanima, bomo na koncu še pogledali, oziroma vam lahko na koncu še razložimo. Tole dali še proč. In zadevo pognali. Se pravi, vidimo, da stališče samih nastavitev je stvar zelo preprosta, zelo intuitivna. In zdaj se pravzaprav pentest že dogaja. Čakam še na zaslon. Moral bi se takoj odpreti. No. Ne bomo preveriti. No matching. Dobro, zdaj bi morali že videti pravzaprav rezultate. Pa iz nekega razloga niti preteklih ta moment ne vidimo. Vmes sem še enkrat tole vse osvežil. Da vidimo, če je problem v brskalniku. Aha, vse je potekla. Ok. Bomo to hitro rešili. Okay.
Gregor, you want me to share my screen?
Yeah, if it's possible, it would be better, yes, since I've got a slight problem with the login. But I was logged in, but somehow I got logged out, so yeah. So if you can just share, probably there's already a running attack, so we will just jump into the results after a few minutes.
Yeah, we have a... Here, let me share. You just stop, please, your sharing. So I can share. Perfect, thank you. So we currently have the results of a scenario.
Okay.
And I can give you control, and then you'll be able to continue to explain.
Okay, perfect.
There you go.
Torej, vedno, ko gremo v živo, je možno, da se kaj zgodi, seveda imamo backup plan. Hvala, Sion. Samo da vidim, ali smo v istem okolju. Ja, ok. So this one was cancelled. Okay, let's try to run. Dajmo še enkrat poskusiti.
This is a ransomware run.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So it's a different one. Okay.
Yeah, we'll just get this for a second. Let it stop. The other one was the black box.
Okay. Wasn't sure.
That's okay. All good. Stop.
Okay.
So it's clean.
Yeah,
Start this one.
Yeah. Torej, zdaj žal v živo v 5 minutah ne bomo uspeli tole pokazati, tako da smo odprli enega od preteklih, ne bom rekel skenov, se pravi napadov, pen testov. Tisto, kar je bistveno in bi videli sprot, ko bi se dogajalo, je prvič, host discovery bi tukaj videli, kako se te naprave počasi odkrivajo. Na to bi se zgodila enumeracija, kjer bi odkrili, kateri operacijski sistemi so na teh napravah, katere ranljivosti imajo. Pravzaprav ranljivosti bi videli potem, kako bi se tukaj gor dodajale. In to je v bistvu ta del, ki ga nekako vulnerability scaneri pokrijejo. Tisto, kar Pentera naredi, se pravi ta pravi pen test, kar bi morali sicer izvajati pen testerji, se pravi ljudje, so pa zdaj te uspehi, tukaj jih vidimo številčno, vidimo na katerih hostih, ki so obarvani, se je kaj kritičnega zgodilo. Tukaj imamo potem te uspehe nekako rangirane. Zdaj, če gremo pogledat, recimo, običajno, no, to moram povedati, se take stvari začnejo dogajati. Če je omrežje aktivno, se pravi, tukaj je treba upoštevati malo dinamiko omrežja, kaj se dogaja. In če smo v delovnem času, se zelo tipično v parih minutah stvari že pokažejo, kaj je možno. In recimo en tak tipičen scenarij, pa se na drugi strani tak, ki si ga nihče ne želi, pa se dostikrat zgodi, je recimo tale, da pridemo, oziroma orodje pride do pravic domenskega administratorja in kot tako ta achievement izberemo, potem vidimo, tako kot smo prej omenjali, nekako ta celotni potek napada oziroma tek vektor. Prav na eni strani imamo tukaj prikazane same ranljivosti, katere so potem zelo lepo opisane, na drugi strani pa potem sam uspeh, ki se je zgodil zaradi obstoja in zlorabe te ranljivosti. Se pravi, v tem primeru recimo je bilo možno v omrežju zaradi ranljivih protokolov LLMNR tipično ali pa MDNS v Microsoft okoljih prestrešiti recimo hash gesla. Drugi korak, seveda, ko to geslo imamo, je, da bi to geslo bodisi poskušali, se pravi, razbiti, ga skrekati. Po drugi strani pa bistveno lažje, če je v omrežju omogočeno izvajati posredovanje tega haša na drugo napravo in se s tem v bistvu autenticirati tja. Prav tako imenovan relay napad. V tem primeru vidimo, da se je zgodil relay preko LDAP protokola, kar pomeni, da smo uporabljali v bistvu hash gesla nekega drugega uporabnika, ga posredovali na neko napravo in se tam pravzaprav s tem autenticirali in začeli izvajati akcije s pravicami tega uporabnika. Se pravi, to je tak tipičen primer. In zdaj, če je ta uporabnik seveda zelo privilegiran, ker v tem primeru vidimo, da se je en tak dogodek zgodil, je ta uporabnik imel domain admin pravice, smo potem pravzaprav tudi mi pridobili domenske pravice. Se pravi, to je en tak zelo lep primer in potem lahko tukaj pogledamo, katero ranljivost bi pravzaprav šli nekako odpravljati, zato da do tega končnega rezultata ne moramo priti. Zdaj, tole je vedno malo drugače, malo bom tukaj pogledal, če je kakšen bolj kompliciran attack vektor. Aha, evo ga. Se pravi, to je pa zdaj malo bolj kompleksna zadeva in tukaj se pa vedno vprašamo, kako pa pravzaprav zdaj pri takem kompleksnem primeru preprečiti napad. In prej sem omenjal fix simulation. Zdaj, tole je res kompleksen primer, ga moram precej povečati. In fix simulation pomeni, da mi označimo eno od ranljivosti, zdaj, kje bi šli, recimo, da ne bomo čisto tamle na vrhu, lahko rečem tole. In če rečem simulate fix, mi bo pokazal, kateri uspehi zaradi tega niso več možni. Zdaj, če bi to odpravili, potem do tega uspeha ne bi prišli. Se pravi, tukaj hitro vidimo, če bi šli pa nekam na vrh, zdaj tale SMB signing, če pa tega lepo fiksamo, je tale cela veriga padla, no še vedno pa ne to spode. Skratka, zelo lepo grafično lahko pogledamo, kateri je zdaj najbolj smiselen fiks. Zdaj v telem kompleksnem attack vektorju niti nimamo toliko časa, da bi šli tukaj v te detajle, ampak mislim, da ste dobili občutek. Jaz bi se še vrnil nazaj na poročilo. Se pravi, kako pa izgleda celotno poročilo. Zdaj seveda se ga da tudi izvoziti, da se samo executive report narediti. Imamo samo še par minut, tako da bi vam pokazal čist high level, kako poročilo izgleda. Pravzaprav je sestavljeno iz parih ključnih elementov. In poročilo ste videli, se je generiralo takoj, ko je bil pen test zaključen. Se pravi, imamo vodstveni povzetek, imamo findinge po samih napravah, potem kateri akaunti so bili zlorabljeni, vulnerability, se pravi ranljivosti, ki so bile odkrite, uspehi in pa na koncu tisto, kar sem rekel, mapping na Mitre Attack Framework. Ena stvar, ki jo tukaj tudi če vidimo v executive summary, se pravi v vodstvenem povzetku, je tale potek, kako se pravzaprav skupna ocena naše varnosti spreminja skozi čas. Se pravi, zelo enostavno vodstvu nekako pokažemo, kje smo, ali se stanje izboljšuje, ali se slabša, na katerih področjih smo pravzaprav slabi, se pravi, imamo pravzaprav slabe akaunte, pa nam lahko zaradi tega credential brute forceajo, ali nam lahko snifajo podatke, skratka, po teh kategorijah. Zdaj, da ne bi preveč vzel časa še Sionu, ne bi šli naprej še te detajlov pogledati, tako da jaz bi zdaj predal besedo Sionu, da nam pa pokaže še ta najnovejši feature, kako se pa da s Pentero simulirati ransomware napade in s tem seveda preveriti, koliko je pravzaprav vaše okolje na to odporno. So Sion, I finished the general presentation, the stage is yours, so please show us the latest feature, how to see how resilient someone is against ransomware attacks. I think you're muted.
Do you see my screen properly?
Everything's fine.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So as Deborah said earlier, if anyone has any questions, please write them in the chat and the Q&A, sorry, and we'll naturally get to them. I'm going to start with a little theoretical information, and then we're going to pretty quickly dive into the demo of our new feature. So when we talk about ransomware, let's understand what a generic attack looks like. The interesting thing is that most ransomware attacks employ the same techniques, the same ways to either get into the network, to perform lateral expansion, and so on. And what usually differs is the code, how they encrypt, which algorithm, what they do after the ransom is paid, and so on. Ransomware commonly starts with a social engineering attack. Those, sadly, are not attacks that the security world has found a foolproof way to prevent, so they still keep on happening. And then the attacker would get in and perform lateral expansion, try to reach, find where the sensitive or critical information that the organization has is, and then encrypt it and exfiltrate it, take it out to wherever the attackers collect this type of information, and then they wait to be paid. To defend against ransomware, Gartner came up with this defense lifecycle, where there is the pre-incident, what you do to prepare and try to prevent a ransomware attack. And that's where the preventative controls come into play. You have the peri-incident during the ransomware attack, where you want to detect and, of course, mitigate the attack. Incident response teams and tools are great examples. And then post-incident, usually what we want to do is find out how it happened, the root cause analysis, and then recover. That phase is way too late, and that means, of course, that ransomware happened and so on. But still, organizations focus a lot of their budget on peri-incident, during the incident, and after it. Pentera can help prevent. Why? Because you use it before the attack happens, find out where you're weak against ransomware and also receive the remediation recommendations. What to do to fix the problems after Pentera validates that they're there. So during the pre-incident, Pentera can help harden infrastructure, right? The generic, let's say, or the standard things that it does that Grega showed. You can find weak spots in your IT infrastructure, prevent better because you'll be ahead of the game, ahead of the attacker, and ultimately focus on what's really putting you at risk, and not just thousands or hundreds or thousands of vulnerabilities where do we start? Now, during the incident, or to help improve during the incident activities, Pentera can help the blue teams or the incident response, help them become faster in detection and in response, because they have Pentera, which is creating real ransomware attacker activity in the network and allows the controls, the tools, and the teams to find out where the problems are, fix them, and then validate that they were indeed fixed before the attackers can. And after incidents, well, Pentera can still be run, and then you would find naturally what to fix in order to reduce the time and the cost of recovery. And you would be able to know where to focus the incident response better. Currently, organizations that have incident response teams try to go as broad as possible, trying to find anything that's happening there. But many times, especially with ransomware, you need to focus on specific vectors or specific techniques to prevent those specific techniques in order to be better. We've seen so many ransomware attacks in the past, well, more than a decade, since 2010, and the behavior, the reaction, the way the world responds to these attacks remains the same, right? Either pay or not pay. Usually, organizations pay a lot of money on backup solutions that would help them simply say, okay, we're not going to pay, clean out their environment and redeploy from backup. But is that really efficient? Is that really a good way to go? Maybe, maybe not. But we came up with another thing, and naturally the RansomwareReady feature, which can help answer this question: am I ready? Those ones with the backups, they're ready to restore, but are they ready to being attacked by ransomware? Probably not. Being ready means that you have some way to prevent, block, and definitely prepare, and those things aren't really as robust, as strong, as powerful. Now, you may say, but we buy all those EDRs and intrusion prevention tools and all kinds of, an entire security stack to prevent ransomware attacks. How do you know they're working? Bottom line is, you don't. Unless you test and validate each and every one of those controls that are supposed to prevent ransomware, you can't answer positively that you're ready. By the way, we were the same, of course. I mean, every organization, you need to have some way to sleep at night and be confident that you're ready. By the way, you know this, security people don't sleep at night, but maybe doze off for a few hours. Pentera can answer this, right? That's the whole reason of that previous slide, to make you understand that, or help understand that with Pentera, you can validate and make sure that all those acronyms here, the EDR, the NDR, the SIM, the next generation antivirus, and so on, all of them, you can be confident that you have tested them, you have validated, and you have made sure that, yes, the EDR is indeed blocking files that are from the Maze family, from the Revel family, from Conti. Those signatures or those incidents of compromise, those indicators, Pentera will help your organization be much readier and able to measure, right? how you're doing. IT usually tries to fix or patch. Now, when we talk about the remediating vulnerability, the immediate concept that pops to mind is, yeah, let's patch. Let's remediate a CVE, a vulnerability that a vulnerability assessment tool found. But, and we'll see this in a minute or so, ransomware attacks almost never exploit known vulnerabilities. They don't exploit CVEs or patches on machines. They exploit dynamic vulnerabilities. Those misconfigurations in the network, the user activity, right? Social engineering, clicking on a link or something in the email which downloads the payload and then starts spreading out in the network. So patching usually doesn't prevent ransomware. But finding those exploitable vulnerabilities, the dynamic ones, and providing the remediation on how to fix, kind of like closing the cycle, the loop, that's what Pentera can help with. One of the problems or challenges that we've been seeing with our customers and partners and basically almost everyone we talk to in the world, how do we prove to our managers that we're ready for ransomware? Yeah, that's one of the most important questions. We hopefully get a budget as security people and they tell us, go solve this, go make sure that we will be prepared against ransomware. With Pentera, and you saw the report that Gregor showed you, you have a lot of visibility, a lot of indication and understanding where you're strong against ransomware and where you're not, and how to improve, of course. So we finally got to the big question. How can you become ransomware ready? Let's take a look. First of all, just a click of a finger. With Pentera, well, several clicks, of course, but with Pentera, you will be able to run a real, or that's what we call it, an emulation of a ransomware attack in your network in a safe manner, no harm caused to anything on your network, without agents, without administration, that heavy administration or a maintenance. And what we did is we built an automated framework which we can add additional ransomware families to it continuously, and they'll be safe by design. In this version, we have support for Maze and Revel. In our upcoming version, in about 2 to 3 weeks, more or less, we will have Conti and other families in there. So you will be able to test and validate against those ransomware families. And if you remember, as I said in the beginning, almost all of them behave in the same manner. And we'll see where the differences are. Usually regarding the indicators of compromise, what the unique things from a specific ransomware family, and I'll touch upon that. What does the framework or the flow look like with ransomware or ransomware ready? So Pentera will launch the attack. We'll inject into a process like CMD, Notepad, a standard everyday process. This is you could say a type of living off the land technique, not using something that's there and will not be blocked. Then Pentera will execute the payload. What the payload does is causes the lateral movement and the encryption. Naturally, it's ransomware, right? So we need to encrypt something of copies of user files. I'll touch upon it a bit more, but the real files that the users have on their machines will not be touched. No operation system files, no executables and so on. Only files in 2 specific locations. We don't need to encrypt the entire machine in order to prove that it is possible. And that's what you'll see. Exfiltration of data. So we have several options here. First of all, you can say, no, I don't want to exfiltrate. You can say, I have my own server in AWS, Azure, somewhere in the cloud, and I want to see if Pentera can exfiltrate those copies of files somewhere out of my network and validate the DLP system and other security controls. But you can also tell Pentera, use a known IOC, use the URL of a server or servers that were known to be used by real ransomware families. So you have several options here. Last but not least, you may have heard of this already, Pentera cleans up after herself. She's a very tidy lady. She's a lady, so anyway, and all the residue, the copies of the files created, the injection into the process, anything that happened will be removed. So you have a clean network, but also that you can restart the scenario and retest if you want without having any residue. Naturally, all of these steps are, and Grega mentioned this earlier, are mapped to the MITRE attack framework. So you could take that information to the defensive side, the blue teams, SOC teams, and be able to know, oh, okay, Pentera performed technique T1101. Are we defending against that or not? And then, of course, start defending against it if not. One of the problems that questions that we talked about 2 slides ago was how do we show management? So Pentera, the company and the product, was developed by well, you could say red teamers, pen testers, security researchers who are very familiar with the pen testing world. And one of the things that we did is we analyzed what the downsides of manual pen testing are. Now, putting aside pen testers themselves, they're great, but the reports that we get, way too long, and not a lot of focus. It's the standard way to do so. Again, it's not the pen tester's fault, but we came up with a better way, what we believe, of course, and are gonna show off a bit. Our over 350 customers worldwide, they love the reports. Why? It gives you high-level information, but you can also see the detailed stuff in there and know what to fix. This report has a lot of eye candy, so to speak. It gives the graphs, basically the bottom line to management. So we've seen it's very effective to answer that question. Getting closer to the demo now. So you probably remember Grega's demonstration of an attack vector. The attack vector is the graphical representation of the kill chain. And here on the left, this is the representation of the RansomwareReady kill chain, where it starts up here. We're going to see it in detail in a few minutes. And it ultimately provides information that proves that Pentera did perform it, of course, showing you every step of the way what you need to fix. As I mentioned, here are the attack techniques or examples of some of them being used here for each step in the framework. So what does this scenario that Pentera provides give you? First of all, end-to-end ransomware attack. There's nothing better than the real thing. Attacking yourself in a safe manner to validate, so that's what you get. The alignment to MITRE, important on the defensive side. Pentera uses the same encryption algorithms as ransomware, like Salsa 20, right? A very commonly known and used one in ransomware. The option to access shadow copies is also tested. That's part of the ransomware techniques. And the data exfiltration options, like I said, you could use one of your own creation, or we can help with that, and go to a known indicator of compromise. When we look at the results of pen testing or vulnerability assessment reports, the main challenge is prioritizing what to fix first. Organizations usually prioritize based on two main factors: the criticality of the asset or the host and the severity level of the vulnerability. So if we have, for example, a domain controller where a critical vulnerability was found, that's where the remediation teams are going to focus on. But is that really the correct prioritization? We believe not, and we can show that. Like Gregor showed, Pentera will find the root cause vulnerability of the entire attack vector, and will show you that by fixing something that's probably not critical regarding the CVSS score, probably not even high, but you fix that one, and then the entire kill chain will be blocked or will fall apart like a house of cards, right, when you pull out the bottom one. And that's which we'll be able to show you. Pentera tests the endpoints, the network, the data itself, and the access, right? That's basically what ransomware does, giving you the true root vulnerability. Oops, that was a bit jumping. Okay, so the output, I talked about the reports. You get priorities, what to fix based on the true risk of the weakness of the vulnerability. What's the impact in the network? That's what you will see. We provide the remediation recommendations, and Pentera has an internal, we call it the remediation wiki, internal database with dozens of pages or articles like these on the vulnerabilities that it finds in order to help the remediation teams, save you doing the homework. Back in the day when I was an IT manager, one of the things that we had to do, we got the report, from the vulnerability assessment or pen testing, and then, okay, what do we need to fix? Go to TechNet, go to another vendor website, download the patch. With Pentera, you have it all in one place. We can show you how Pentera, or which endpoint tools Pentera was able to bypass, right? So you can see here that, for example, did not detect any antivirus or EDR on 6 hosts. It was able to bypass ATP on 11 hosts, and so on. So you get that information, and then you can fine-tune your EDRs and those endpoint tools. Some of you may be familiar with this slide or this document. These are basically the criteria, the success criteria from our proof of value projects. One of the things that you can also, and of course, how Pentera works in production. One of the things you can add to that is ransomware readiness. Ready to see it in action? Yay! Okay, so I'm going to stop the share here and share Pentera. Share. And we will go to here. So I did create one to show in advance. I want to go over the configuration to explain what I did. I just prepared it so it would take less time. Almost every configuration in this area is intended to either provide safety, and I'll explain what I mean, or to help Pentera focus and perform, answer the use case that you as the users want to answer. So user name and description of the scenario. I provided a class C subnet here. You can see 192.168.130.0 to 255. I just did /24, and I excluded one machine. Pentera will completely ignore any machine that was excluded, or if we said like from 1 to 100, completely ignore all the other 101 to 255 IPs. You have full control over the scope of the testing scenario. Now, Pentera will choose the first 50 hosts that it finds from that scope that I showed you, and will perform the ransomware emulation on them. One of the important things regarding configuration is you have to provide a privileged account for two things. One, kicking off or initiating the attack, and two, the cleanup after the end. All the other parts in the middle of this scenario will happen alone. Pentera doesn't need anything else other than the credentials here. Now you can select a campaign, right? I said Maze, Revel, Conti. The list will keep on growing because we built that framework that I mentioned. You could also decide encryption mode. Do I want it fast? Do I want it slow? The main difference is that on slow, it will encrypt the entire file, and fast, it'll encrypt 100 kilobytes from the file. For validation purposes, fast is usually enough. I mean, if an attacker can encrypt part of a file, they can encrypt the whole file. So, but you also sometimes may want to test the entire, the full encryption and so on. All good, but that's why we gave two options here. By default, Pentera will look at 300 odd, a little over 300 file extensions or file types, all kinds of documents, audio, video, Office, you name it, right? Over 300 extensions. And you can also add your own. Let's say that you have a proprietary file extension, .customer file or .customer extension. You could add them here, and Pentera will try to encrypt and or exfiltrate copies of those files. Approvals. Again, a safety measure or feature. Pentera will always, if you turn this feature on, will always ask for approval to perform an intrusive or active exploit, basically to use the ransomware technique and attack the hosts. For demo purposes, I'm leaving it on, of course. There are customers that we have that already purchased the ransomware module who know that Pentera is safe and do not turn it on. The data exfiltration. So this is what I mentioned. You could choose several options. 1, none. 2, your own designated C2, and it's not hard to create one. Or the known IOCs. There is a list of those URLs. Not going to talk about it now, but of course, if anyone wants, it can be provided. Schedule and duration are in there to automate the operational side of using Pentera. But not only that, it also mitigates the downsides of pen testing cadence. Most organizations have a penetration test once a year, twice a year. The best I've seen is every quarter, so 4 times a year. Yes, there are organizations who have red teamers or pen testers on staff, but that's rarer. And anyway, it still takes the pen testers and red teamers time to do what they want. Here, you can run Pentera for 100 days continuously if you want. It'll give you a lot of stuff to remediate afterwards, so we don't recommend doing that at one time, but again, it's possible. And the scheduling, sorry. No more managing okay, who needs to do what, when. No, you schedule Pentera with the specific testing scenario you want it to perform. That's it, and get the results afterwards. Okay, I'm going to run the templates. It will take a minute or so, maybe more, because I provided Pentera with credentials. Before using any credentials that it obtains, could sniff them from the network traffic, it could harvest them from somewhere. It will validate to make sure that it can use that account so it doesn't cause lockouts. So you could see that the timer has started. Pentera tells us that credentials were provided, which is correct. Here's that user. And Pentera is performing host discovery and looking for domain controllers. Currently found 2 IPs and continuing with enumeration. Now it found 1 machine here, which, very cool, DC2. So probably a domain controller, right? I love it when Pentera finds those machines. Pentera also found that that user that it received has privileged remote code has remote code execution privileges. Continuing to discover and enumerate more and more machines, Pentera is also trying to discover or detect, antiviruses in EDR using WMI. New achievements have popped up here. So to recap, an achievement is a successful attack action. If you could see it here, it happened, and it's very easy to see that it happened in the network. Pentera was able to query this machine 192.168.130.4. Here is the WMI query. One of the things I like about Pentera is that it's very transparent. It finds information, it shows the user, so you understand what it did, and it will show that it found Windows Defender, which is disabled and thus not scanning. So good to focus on that one. Additionally, here, let's see what it found. On another machine, it found a Defender. And it'll continue doing so on and on and on and on. Now, I see these 2 approvals on the right side. Pentera has not, performed any intrusive action because we haven't approved. So let's take a look at that. It tells me, okay, it wants to emulate Maze, the Maze ransomware family. It's Penteraware, and these are the hosts. Do I approve or not? So I will approve it. And we will see here, you go. This under current activity, you will always see what Pentera is doing in a specific moment. And it's still, you could see enumerating, not all the machines here are fully enumerated. Colors denote the highest level of achievement obtained on the host. So orange is high, blue is low. You could see the color scheme here. I want to show you several interesting things here. So Pentera has an actions log. The actions log shows the user every single technique or action that Pentera performed, successful or not. On the right here, you can see the status, if they were successful or not. You can see here that there's this pop-up here is a new achievement. Ransomware kill chain was interrupted. We'll go back to that in a moment. You could see that out of all the actions that performed, most of them were successful so far. You can see the time when it happened and so on, and the MITRE techniques for each one. This can be integrated to a SIM platform natively in the Pentera UI, very easy and straightforward. And then all this information gets sent to the SIM for analysis. So we can see that Pentera found the critical things here. Let's take a look at one of them. If you remember in the presentation, I showed you a similar attack vector. So let's analyze it, and then we'll go over some of the other of the achievements. Credentials were provided. We said we needed that to start to kick off this specific testing scenario. Okay, and we know that, well, I know that that's the account. Pentera found that this account has privilege, right? Privilege remote code execution capabilities on these 2 hosts. It verified it using WMI. Then Pentera opened a remote control channel, allowing Pentera to own the host, right? Because once it has a reverse shell, think about this as a reverse shell, it can run the code that we know has privileges on the remote machine. So it's the 134 machine. You also get the results or over which port was the remote control channel open, the protocol, and the authentication protocol. And then we see that Pentera ran code. Here's the command, a bits admin command. This is another example of those types of living off the land techniques. Bits admin, commonly used. If it's not used, no one thinks about blocking or preventing usage of it. Pentera Pentera exploits these types of weaknesses in a very successful and easy manner, as you can see here. We also get the MITRE technique used naturally. Now, what does the code that Pentera has do? Generally speaking, there are two main things that Pentera does: collect information and propagate the attack. Collect and propagate. Why? Because its goal is validation. Its goal is not capturing the flag, reaching the domain controller, or creating its own domain admin. It will do so, or at least try to do so, but that's not the goal. Okay? And that's why the reports that you get from Pentera are, if we do say so ourselves, much more efficient and contextual to what you need to fix than other reports that I've seen, at least, or we've seen. Payload established connection with Pentera's C2 server. So that code that was run, dialed home right back to the Pentera device. We could see on which port. The insight is what the attacker can do. What's the risk here? And then Pentera uploaded malware to host. A word about our malware. So we call it malware because it's a known industry term, but in reality, it's Penteraware. All of our exploits are developed in-house. Those exploits that you may be familiar with from various tools out there like Metasploit, Kali Linux, we reverse engineer, take out anything that could cause harm, right? Safety is the goal. And tell the payload or the malware to do those two things I said, right? Collect information and propagate the attack. Pentera will tell you the file name, the path, and the injection method. So this can help with forensic investigations and pinpointing what you need to do to protect yourselves. Generating an encryption key. So ransomware, right? Pentera wants to try to find files and encrypt them. We could see several things. First of all, the ransomware family, maze, the target host, encryption algorithm, remember Salsa 20, and here is the key created, keybase 64, using Salsa 20. But something blocked the kill chain. And I'll talk about that in a second. I don't know if you noticed this one, which just popped up. So this is also an interesting one, because it tells us that this account now has access to all of these hosts. And this means that it's going to spread out the attack. Remember that we only had 2 approvals here before. Look at that. Now we have more. And here we can see where these approvals are waiting on. All these blinking machines with the one action, those are the potential targets that Pentera found. So I'm going to approve them all. There are only 8, so it's fine. We don't recommend to approve hundreds at once, of course, if you're running Pentera on a larger network and so on. Now, while we're waiting for the pot to boil, there are several, let's see, this file. This is also bits admin. Okay, back to here. Notice that things keep on changing here, which is interesting. Another one of our reports is the MITRE attack matrix, or the MITRE heat map, if you will. And it shows you exactly which TTPs, which techniques, tactics, or procedures that Pentera used in the context of this testing scenario. This can change naturally because every time you run Pentera, you can get different results. Here we can see the technique and the sub-techniques for those that have them. So that gives you a good, hopefully a good way to correlate and see where you need to focus. Footprints is one of my favorite reports because it allows Pentera to, or helps the users of Pentera see where files were injected. You don't have to go and start looking around in your network and searching for files that you're not familiar with. You can if you want, but you don't need to, because Pentera will show you specifically where the files were injected, and a hash. It'll make it much easier to look for them or to validate that this is indeed the file. Pentera will also create services and schedule tasks, and of course, clean them as well. You can search for them, of course, and at the end, you also have the cleanup option. I just noticed that 3 new ones were added here. And these approvals were to detect installed antiviruses, because once Pentera finds which antiviruses are there and information about them, if it's disabled, whew, yay, the door's open, Pentera can get in. If they're not, Pentera will try to use varying levels of obfuscation of the malware would be, or the payloads would be sometimes detectable or blockable by the defensive tools, and sometimes they'll be much more sneaky, right? They'll be sneakier. So that's something that is, you can see what that Pentera does. And I can see that the chain was blocked on these machines, but the chain here is different. So just to explain what I mean about different, if you remember, we went through these. Pentera opened the remote control channel, executed code. There was a payload that established connection with Pentera. But there's also another thing that happened in parallel, right? Pentera opened another remote control channel and executed code in a different manner. And here you can see, ran it with CMD. Ooh, nice, we got something interesting here, but we'll get to it. Then a payload was established, and then Pentera injected right into this target process a .NET assembly in order to make the process do what it wants. Think of a computer virus, but like a biological virus that grabs a cell and makes it do what it wants. So that's the same concept. Well, it generated the encryption key, but it was interrupted. Now, what can interrupt this? Several things: antivirus, EDR, technical things like the machine being disconnected to the network, shutting it down, you name it. Things can disrupt this, but we're going to look in a moment at a successful ransomware attack kill chain. Some of the things that, to explain the vector a bit more, okay, so broken shields are vulnerabilities. The color of the shield denotes the level of severity. Red is critical, of course. Trophies are achievements, and here as well, the color denotes severity level and so on. You may notice these numbers here in the circles between the vulnerabilities or achievements. What they do, they show you the details of the action between the achievements. So the number denotes the level of the adversary. Is this something that a script kiddie, a noob, a person who just is starting in pen testing, can they do that? Or do we need someone that's really a professional? So for example, here, this is something that could be done by a professional. You would see the MITRE techniques and sub-techniques, the exact time when it happened with the local time, of course. This is, I guess, not your time. a lot of parameters, what Pentera did, how it did it. And one of the most interesting things to me, which ransomware groups, which ATPs or hacker groups are using this technique in the wild. So, you could also, that also helps defensive teams protect themselves. I think that we need a drum roll here, right? Okay, so this is a much longer, as you probably saw, vector, and that's because Pentera completed the ransomware kill chain. Same beginning, right? I'm not gonna re-explain it, just going over the same thing. We got to here. Pentera uploaded malware to the host, executed the code remotely, established a connection, injected to CMD exe as well, generated the encryption key, and boom, enumerated the files. Up till that's where it could fail. Now, by the way, if there are no files, that's also can cause a fail, just so you know, because if there are no files to enumerate, Pentera creates copies of files. So we have ps-tool-zip, EULA text, and ps-version.txt. Pentera added the PNT backup, and you can see where this exists in which folders, user folders, right? Not operating system folders. And then Pentera encrypted the files. So we created a copy, right, with the enumeration, with the a copy of the files. And here we changed the name once they're encrypted to RNSM. Again, this is a safety feature to make sure that we're not touching any real files, and also to prove that this can happen. An attacker can do this. Then Pentera will, since Maze, the Maze ransomware family uses this command, shadow copy delete, right, to emulate shadow copy deletions. Other families use different commands. And if that happened, then Pentera will clean out everything and say, I was able to complete the end-to-end ransomware kill chain. Okay. So stopping now, okay, because I want to show you the report as well. And after that, after I show the report, we will open, we will see questions and start going towards the summary of the webinar. Sad, I know, but every good thing has an end. Now, while once we stop it, right, as we said, Pentera enters cleanup, you can see that it's cleaned ransomware files, well, and services and registry keys and all the other things that it does. Maybe a bit more. Did go over the host file, important. So report, sorry, you have a report that shows you all the hosts that were found in this testing scenario. High level information up here. You could add to critical assets if you think it is one. The achievements on this machine, services which were found, their ports, the protocol and their state, open, closed, filtered. The roles that it found, and the AV list. It found Defender on and scanning. Come on. Once it stops, the report will be generated and we'll be able to see it. By the way, are there any questions so far? I didn't see, wasn't looking at the Q&A. No, nothing yet. My mother always told me, a watched pot never boils. I have to look away. By the way, I usually don't like to talk about the speed because it's not usually that important, but notice what happened. In much less than 20 minutes, right, Pentera was able to complete the kill chain, and you have all the rest of the successful actions that it performed as part of this kill chain or this testing scenario. This is something that helps organizations really shorten the time that it takes them to secure themselves or validate what they want to validate regarding the use cases. So it's a very, to us, it's a very interesting topic. So I don't want to, oh, here we go. Pentera fears me. So we're going to the report. Similar to the report that Grega showed, right? But there are several different focuses. First of all, you get a cover page that explains what this testing scenario is supposed to do, the ransomware emulation, and what the goals are and how to understand it. Then you would get explanation about Maze, the campaign that we used here. And here you can see, so I configured that testing scenario and I ran it, well, and also Grega kind of started it, so we have a good example here. Now, didn't find anything, and then today it found, well, it succeeded in completing the ransomware chain, so our resilience score is 90, which is, 100 is the worst, and 0 is the best. No, things to focus on. 10 critical out of 96 achievements. Now on the left, one host had its EDR bypassed. There were 10 hosts that were targeted, and data exfiltration was not configured by me. Payload launched was a success. File enumeration, success. Encryption, and so on. So you see, you get a lot of good information. Here are the informations about the bypassing or not. Live host table that were detected, the encryption, so types of files which were encrypted. One was a zip file, other were documents. You could see here the achievements themselves, so you can understand what exactly happened there, the MITRE map. And this is what I mentioned about the remediation efforts. You get the explanation, what to do, how to do, and additional information in Pentera. You can find the URLs of those IOCs. You can find malware samples in Pentera, and so on. You basically get all the information, hopefully, that you need in order to remediate and then revalidate that you're safe. I'm going to stop the share and open it up for questions. Don't be shy. Okay. Grega, Matthias, anything on your side that you would like to add here?
So thank you, Sion. A se kdo upogumil v slovenskem jeziku s kakšnim vprašanjem?
Someone, Robert, raised his hand, I think.
Ja, gospod Ceglar, izvolite. Okay, I will allow Robert to talk. So you can ask your question, Robert.
Thanks, Adeline.
No problem.
Slišite? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Moje vprašanje bi bilo, my question would be, for example, for this example, you used a small network. So what would be the time necessary to scan network which is bigger, for example, 1,000 nodes in a B class for the same scenario as you explained here?
The ransomware one, you mean? Or
yes.
Generic? Yeah.
Both, yeah.
Yeah. So for black box or gray box scenarios that we have, they can cover thousands up. The current soft limit is up to 3,000 hosts, if I remember correctly. So you can cover large net, not only a type class C subnet. Regarding the ransomware, though, currently the limit, if you saw that, was 50 hosts. Even if you put in 1,000, somehow scope of 1,000, it will focus on 50 hosts, because if it can do the ransomware attack on 50 hosts or any hosts in those 50 machines, you're vulnerable to it. So you need to, you would be able to see in the remediation recommendations what to fix, and then fix or apply the fix to all the devices in that network.
So you will propose us to use this tool on all kinds of generic devices involved in our network.
Yes, Pentera supports Windows, Linux, Mac, network devices. It does not support IoT, or it doesn't specific. The content in IoT isn't specifically supported, but Pentera performs OS agnostic attacks. Looking at protocols or services or things that doesn't matter where they run or what they how they're configured. Pentera will try to exploit them as well, but not. We are focused on the IT or network infrastructure, if you will.
Okay.
So anything in there.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Robert. Has anyone got any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand or write them on the Q&A. Again, our experts here are happy to answer any questions you may have. I can't see anything coming in. If nobody has any questions, I guess we will end the webinar now. Feel free to contact us and the team at CarbonSec if any question arises. Again, they'll be more than happy to answer any queries you may have. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.